Hello, hello. Welcome everybody to another episode of the Orange Card Blue Card podcast. I, of course, am Sam Tate, and I am joined by your Pasadena Regional License Exam Champion, Salvador. Salvador, how are you feeling right now?
Feeling great. I'm super hyped for this, man.
Thank you for sitting
Super,
down
super
with me.
hyped.
I
Appreciate
was
it. I love it. Oh, sorry. Appreciate the opportunity.
I was super excited to see the air symbol win a regional for the first time in maybe ever. I haven't kept track of the stats too much, but um, I want to ask you. I want to start with some get to know you questions first. And
Okay.
first, I guess, is on my mind at least. How long have you been playing the My Hero Academia card game?
I've been playing since set 2 dropped. So
Okay.
about a year ago, my local card shop hosted a demo event, like right before set 2 dropped. And I remember telling my friends and I, like, oh, we're going to go try it out and we're never going to play the game ever again because we thought the My Hero fan base was a little, you know, not good. So we tried it out, and one of us of the group loved the game so much they built a deck the same day, and I was like, "Well, I guess I got to build a deck now so to play with them." So that's how it started.
That's how they get you.
Yeah.
It's super funny. My story is a little similar as far as I saw a UFS card way back in the day, and I thought, oh, I'll just pick this up. And I'm not much of a collector, but it was like a $5 card, and I was like, I never thought they'd have a card game for this video game I like, and so I
Yeah.
thought I would just pick it up. I was there to buy board games, and I was like, I'll just pick this card up. And next thing I know, within an hour, I got someone like building me a deck, handing me cards, sitting down to demo me, and I didn't even think it was a real card game.
Happens more than you think, I guess. They just hook you in like that. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
so that's pretty cool. So you've been playing basically since Crimson Rampage dropped. How
Yeah.
many like regionals have you attended? Did you go to nationals or anything like that last year?
No, I've only been to, I think, 2 or 3. I know I did one online one, and then the 2 Pasadena ones from the past year and this year. So I think 3 in total, but might have been another online, but I'm not sure.
Okay, so you third time's the charm, basically.
Yeah.
That's
First one, I was playing Cementos because like Cementos was huge in the scene, I guess, when Crimson Rampage dropped, and I was like, that's the one, I guess. And I think I was 2 HP off of getting top 16. I was
ooh,
playing a
darn.
Shigaraki, so yeah, like it was rough.
Mentos was one of those feast or famine type designs where either he's so oppressive, he's ridiculous, you can't stop him, or he's not going to be a threat at all, pretty much. And I think he fell victim to the Momo meta. But I keep looking at Cementos every now and then.
Yeah, no, I really want to revisit the character now. There's a lot of tools on Earth, like, and
Yeah.
especially with Set 5 coming up, like that's gonna be hype. It's gonna be really
Ooh,
cool.
yeah. Let me ask you this: how do you feel about Meteor Fafrotsky's in Air Cementos?
Ooh, you know what? I haven't looked at the card yet. You mind if I like look it up real quick?
It's pretty simple. It's just a 5 high 5 that gets +1 damage for each of your face downs. It's just like a better Cementos enhanced.
Dude, is the Cementos have air?
Yeah.
Can you really?
I used to
Yeah,
play Frog
dude.
Lashing Cementos back in the day.
Oh my god, yeah, that sounds epic. That sounds cool.
Yeah. Can you imagine just you didn't hold a high block, he plays 2 of those on like turn 3 and they're 18 damage each.
You're just like, go ahead and try it and catch this
Yeah,
18.
hey, I got 9 face downs, bro.
Yeah,
But
like 7 cards in hand.
let's talk Toru. Let's talk current format. Let's talk right
Okay.
now because I know that I never had it on my bingo card. Right? No one saw the Toru 2 coming. What made you pick Toru 2? Is this a deck you've been working on for a long time, or did you just say, "Hey, I recognize the meta is Recovery Girls and Fourth Kinds and Jiros, and I have the answers to those decks"?
This is a really funny story. So for almost the entire year this year, I was on Tetsutetsu Thrashing Barrage Nomu. That was like the deck I thought was like the best in the format. Could get through. Yeah, I know. Could get through everything.
So you knew
Um,
your top 8, or was it top 8 or top 4 matchup that you
it
had to
was
play
top
against?
4. I
Top
knew
4.
I knew what he was playing, and I knew how it would play. Um, but yeah, I was on that deck like for so long, and then like Woe Nature got banned. I was like, well, there goes the entire deck. It doesn't work anymore. Snack
Oh,
time
snack
isn't
time!
doesn't
Come
work.
on, you still have
I know,
snack
yeah.
time.
I had snack time in the deck, but from what my deck was built like, it wasn't doing that much compared to Woe Nature. I think it relied on Woe Nature.
Okay.
So yeah, so, like, about a week, I think, before Pasadena was the ban list, and I was like, "Well, what else do I have to play?" And I had this
Mhm.
Toro 2 deck that, I took straight from the HLC, Mike Hardiman, 13th place, I think. I basically took his list and started playing it at locals, and I was like, "This is doing pretty well at locals." And then I just took that, modified it, slimmed it down a little bit, added some set 4, and then that's what, became the deck that we have today.
Okay, nice, nice. So Mike Hardiman, a little ahead of his time, you might say.
I think so. Yeah, I think the format was just perfect for Toro to be up there with everyone. Because like there's no woman nature anymore, so you don't have to worry about that messing with your speed and your numbers and stuff. So I think it was perfect.
Okay. So then, what made you decide on the air symbols, just like the deck that you saw from the HLC? Because whenever I've seen Toru 2 as her own character, if she's not in the sideboard, she's like for sure on the other two symbols.
Mhm. I've built Toru on Good and Water before. Like right when she came out, when she was like previewed, I was like, "Oh man, this character's busted." So I had to build a water deck because I was huge on water at the time. And it didn't do what I thought it was gonna do. Like, it wasn't as oppressive because like you could get no damage besides frigid and like tongue whip. Um, so I was like, okay, maybe that's not gonna work. And I tried good, and I tried the good punch package, and I was like, this is kind of working, but I kind of die a lot. The response doesn't save me all the time. And then I tried out the air one, and I was like, I get a lot of damage, good defense. This is perfect. This is what I need. It's like amazing.
Okay, all right. I I've been a little bit of an air denier personally because I find that it lacks hard draw. A lot of the times, really strong defensive decks, they operate by getting ahead because they draw a bunch of extra foundations and get to play them and still hold cards on defense. But you seem to have the perfect block for the exact amount of attacks that you were fighting against. I mean, fighting against five handers, fighting against Jiro, who's trying to resolve like two or three just like massive bombs. Were those the decks you were testing against, and you were finding out that really you could just like build three foundations, hold three cards, and still defend adequately against things like fourth kind?
Yeah, I didn't really playtest against Fourth Kind a lot because leading up to the event, I was helping my friends playtest for their decks, playing other
Okay.
characters. So I didn't really have much experience against Fourth Kind, but I did know that they played a lot of like indiscriminate. So I was like, oh, I might have to hold the lows, and then what's that? Vile seizing for the highs. And then for everything else, it's just experience from like previous like games, like Jiro. I played against Jiro a lot. Recovery Girl, I played like once or twice, like just offhand. Um, and then the One Punch deck I played because one of my friends picked it up and took it to locals. It's like, oh, I guess I have to like practice against this too. So that's basically all experience I got, just
Okay.
playing at locals.
Nice. I can dig it. Let's talk day one in Swiss. How did your Swiss run go? Because I didn't get to look at the standings beyond that you were Swiss champ.
Mhm.
I don't know if you were completely undefeated, if you had any draws. How was your Swiss run?
I went 5-0-2. Let me pull up a list. Actually, I took note of all the games I've played. But I do know the two ties were against Rochester CCG. I played
Orange
against
man bad.
yeah, Orange Man.
Orange
I
man
played
bad.
against Recovery Girl and Fourth Kind. Both of them.
Okay.
Forgot who it was. It was Jeff, I think, and Sean.
Jeffrey
Played against
Kahn.
both of them. Jeffrey Kahn and Sean O'Brien played both of them in rounds. It's tied against both of them, and everyone else I defeated. I played a Jiro, played Fourth Kind, a bunch of All Mights, one Recovery Girl, and that was it. That was my rounds. Just a bunch of All Mights and like Jiro and Fourth Kind.
Okay. Yeah, there was a bunch of All Mights, and I was a little surprised at that, but I did. I originally thought that Pasadena, like last year, was going to end up being a top 8, not a top 16. And so I remember at the beginning of Swiss, I was like, man, there's all these All Might threes, and none of them are going to make top cuts. And when I found out that it was top 16, I was like, oh, well, I guess like 3 or 4 are going to make top 16, but they won't be in the higher seed of the bracket. But I also said that before I knew Kevin Broberg was on All Might 3.
Yeah, no, thank God I avoided him. I didn't want to play as all my three. Seems scary.
Yeah. So 502, okay, and then we ended up with Swiss champ, which means a lot of people definitely had to be taking losses, not too many 0-loss opponents throughout Swiss. But when it came to top cuts and you saw the bracket, how difficult did you think your run was going to be? Were you confident against most of the matchups on your half of the bracket?
Um, Honestly, I think so because like I've had a bunch of experience against like my side of the bracket, and then like towards the other side, I was like, oh, there's a midnight there. There's a recovery girl, which is pretty hard to beat. There's a bunch of like weird stuff over there that I haven't really played much against. I was like, whew, I'm safe over here on this bracket. You know, like if I get to play these guys, I know a lot of what's going to be in their deck. So I did feel a little bit confident, like knowing the weird stuff's over there. I'll face it in the finals if I get there. You know.
Yeah, I we actually did for the first time, at least in a long time, we did a little bit of bracketology. I don't know if you saw any of the bracket videos. I had you going all the way to the Nomu matchup, and then I figured a mix of like the 4 difficulty lineup combined with his ability to counter indiscriminate shock. I really thought was going to allow the Nomu deck to come out ahead, right? You know, if he gets you down to a lethal amount and he's still playing like Tetsu Thrashings on like a 6 or a 7, it's not that important if you make him play it a second time, right? Tell me, what was your hardest matchup of top cuts, do you think?
Nomu for sure.
Okay.
I remember before playing the match, I was like with a group of my buddies, and we were like making a plan on what to do with the Nomu. I was like, man, what do I do? Because like he's throwing out a bunch of mids, and he might throw like the occasional hardened chop. Like, do I block that? Do I not block that? Like, what do I do with that? And then they were like, dude, just hold mids. You should be fine. Hold the breaker in the hand. Don't use it. And then just block everything. Don't take damage that you don't need to, and then you
Mm-hmm.
should be fine. Uh, but as soon as it's easier said done, or it's easier said than done. So we got to the match, game one, didn't draw any mids whatsoever, played a bunch of high blocks and took half damage, and that's what killed me. Uh,
Yeah.
so that was definitely my hardest match. Was a Nomu.
Okay, yeah. I had a dream final of Nicholas Reagan, who unfun stuff sponsored player. There's some bias there, and he was going to be my hometown hero story. I thought for sure someone from California, someone from the region was going to end up taking it down, and I was right about that. But it ended up being you, Salvador, and I'm gonna say my chat's blowing up with my champion, the people's champion. You've got a lot of fans. Tell me a little bit about your local scene because it seems to be fostering some pretty cool play groups.
Yeah, no, I've got a bunch of people to thank for like training with me and like grinding games. Let's see who's in the chat right now. We've got Lance, I'm not sure if I guess he's a tournament organizer for GGW. We got George, that's my friend. He played test with me a bunch. We got Julio. He's my go. He plays a Racerhead. That's pretty cool. He has a big
Okay.
brain. Yeah, no, just a bunch of people that I could name. TC, a bunch of people that helped me with certain matchups. Like I play TC, he plays a Nomu, so that really helped me against the Nomu in the top cuts. Richard, he's not here, but he's out having fun in Japan. A bunch of people
Oh,
that I
are you talking about
yeah.
Richard Dobson who also made top cuts?
No, his name's
Oh,
Richard Martyr.
different Richard. Okay, I just recognize the
Different.
name Richard from
Oh, Pippa.
the
Sorry,
top
Pippa
side.
too. Pippa helps me a lot. Pippa's my goat.
Okay, Pippa. All right, that's a pretty stacked locals group, I gotta say.
Yeah. No, everybody's really good.
Yeah. How many people did you make the trip down? I don't know how far you had to travel. I know California is pretty big. I don't know if you're like local directly to Pasadena, but how many people did you travel to the event with?
It was just me and George. Everyone else, we went there separately. I don't think
Okay.
we made plans to like meet up, but we just kind of met up naturally. I live like 30 minutes from Pasadena, so it wasn't that bad of a trip. We just had to wake up early and get there. I was just traveling with George.
Okay, not too bad, not too bad. Um, I want to ask about the. Well, I guess we should stay with the actual event itself. I got a little distracted because my chat was blowing up with all the love coming from your
You're good.
locals.
You're
But
good.
I do actually. I want to talk a lot more about your top cuts run. We talked about the Nomu matchup being the most difficult, right? And then I want to talk about finals because it's a game everyone got to see. It was a match that was streamed. Um, you've got the Giro in the sideboard, and
Yes.
I heard a rumor. At least you can definitely correct me if I'm wrong, but you had only used it one time throughout the weekend in Recovery Girl, right, to tie up game two, go 1-1 against Sean O'Brien. When you found out that in finals you were going to be fighting against a good symbol Giro, did you ever think that you were going to side into Giro during that matchup?
I thought about it once or twice. When I was playing against the Giro game one, I was like, do I have enough to beat the Giro? Like against previous matchups or previous games, like I did it because of luck. It was like
Mm-hmm.
they didn't draw the hand, and I was like, okay, I've got all this, and I can just plop it on the table and do 27, right? Um, but then they brought out the Monoma, and I was like, there's no shot. I would just be playing Giro against Giro anyway. It didn't matter, so I just stayed Toru. Yeah, I did cross my mind a little bit, but I knew I kind of wanted to take it down with Toru if I had the chance, and we got there in the end.
I was really hoping that you were going to go Giro for game two for exactly two reasons. One is when Giro plays against Giro, there's like a gentleman's agreement almost, or like a handshake agreement, where you can't do the Giro in hands because you'll both know what the cards are, and
Yeah.
your rival, whoever goes second, gets to pick the order that they want, right? And especially if it's not like webcam where like everything gets revealed, like the order and stuff, how it goes back. So I thought that would be funny. But then I thought it would have been even funnier if Tony sided into Monoma, and then you sided into Jiro and said, no, you'd never get to be Toru. You only get to be Jiro, but with less health now. So that
Yeah.
would have been the absolute, like, meme gold.
No, yeah, that would been pretty cool. But I really thought about it when I saw Monomo hit the board. I was like, there's no way I can ever go to Giro. It'd just be
Yeah.
Giro, his deck as Giro, and then my deck as Giro. We just be playing Giro.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think that is the right call. As funny as it would be, you didn't make a Jiro list. You made a Toru list, right? And
Yeah.
one of the things that at least a lot of the content creators that I follow have talked about is when talking about Toru, people plan to use her from the sideboard. They like her for really specific matchups. But this whole time, I myself and quite a few others, I know Tamarin Cardwell, Andrew Holder, etc., they've also talked about if you're gonna play the Toru for the counter, just make a Toru deck, right? Just build the Toru deck from the beginning. So, how different do you find the Toru deck building to be from other decks? Because I'll say when I play Denki and I play Jiro and I play like a lot of air characters, I really feel like I'm just playing like the same charge attack package. But how did you sort of differentiate your approach from just saying I'm playing all the same like set one cards and come up with the additions that you changed from the HLC list?
Yeah. So the major thing was looking at the meta, because right now the meta I think is full of punches, right? I don't know if I saw any like air lists that had arrogant in the main board. So I was like, oh, might as well just put an arrogant for all the punches, and then for everything else was just like matchup, like what I think would be better for the matchups, like wall cling for recovery girl. I only had two because I could reset it with invisible infiltration if I needed to. So I thought I only needed two, and then web of blades for like anything that reduces speed below printed. That would really help me. That's one of the biggest cards in the deck, and then attack wise, just kept everything the same that Mike Hardiman had, because I thought it was just perfect. Cat Punch
Okay.
was good, like all tournament, like removing something and then finding an attack card, or Pillar Swing, and like what was the Bakugo card? I forgot the name of it, but the latent skill on face, basically. That
Oh,
was
it's signature right swing. Yeah,
signature right swing. Yeah,
it's
yeah,
low block latent skills, what I call it.
pretty much. Yeah,
It's
that was pretty
the lane skill at the +1 low block. Yeah, I dig the list. I love the I I keep trying to make Toru 1 work personally. I keep going back to that deck like at least once per set. I like make a Toru 1 list because I really dig the invisible infiltration tech. I think that card is really cool to use in a lot of decks. And then having the Breaker 2 on it just makes it seem like an all-star card. I want to ask you, what do you think were the most important? I can send you a list to your own link if you need it. What do you think were the most important cards throughout that tournament? Like, what were like the absolute all-stars? Hard mode, you can't say indiscriminate shock.
Oh, okay. That was gonna be my number one pick.
we know that's number one.
Yeah, got it. Secret MVP, I guess Pillar Swing, because like against my game against Dobby in the top cut, that's the card that did it in because it's a stun 2. You got to fully block this, or you take 8, or you take 4. That's just
Right.
huge damage on a 19 health character. Invisible Filtration, my absolute favorite card in the deck. It's just a breaker 2 block. You get to reset a foundation if you want, and it gets damage on face. Like, how could you not love it? That's pretty cool. And then also Earphone Jack. That one, I know a lot of people
Okay.
don't like it, but +1 speed on like all your attacks, basically, this is pretty good. And if it hits, you can re-ready something. So like if you committed too many resources, just boop, I'll bring one back and then be ready for defense next turn.
Yeah, there's
But
definitely a couple times throughout the weekend where I saw different decks playing Earphone Jack. I was a little surprised. And there's once or twice where I saw a missed Earphone Jack response that would have allowed someone to get a win. So I think Earphone Jack has a spot coming back. I mean, I don't know how I got tricked. I guess it was just the turn 2 meta game was so fast where it got to the point where playing an asset turn 1 just felt like you were debuilding yourself one, right? Like it's not there to help you pass checks and things like that. But the metagame has slowed down a little bit. I want to ask you, and Toru 2 is specifically amazing at not getting turn 2'd because of that response. Did you have any games that were really fast, any turn 2 kills, or any turn 2 deaths, really any games that ended that quickly?
the Dobby, that was probably the best one. I know, like as soon as I sat down with Dobby and bets, he was like, "This is gonna be over quick. We're gonna die really fast. You're gonna die really fast. I'm gonna die really fast. So let's just get over with." I'm like, okay. So we sat down, played our game 1. It was like maybe 5 minutes. I killed him. I think turn 2 or 3. Game 2, we sat down. He went first, and he took me out like instantly. I was like, okay, I guess game 3. Maybe we were like 10, 15 minutes into the game, and then or into the round, and I took him out to I think turn 3 with the pillar swing into indiscriminate, or yeah, 1.3.
The
So
double
that's what
IDS.
yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Yeah, the Dobby 2 matchup, definitely one you're going to expect to be pretty quick most of the time. You had the 2 ties, right? So we can assume those games, obviously, were taking a
They went
while.
Yeah.
But you had 5 wins. So in your wins, can I ask you, how many do you remember were 2 O's? How many were 2 1s? Or 1 O's even?
Let me look through the list. I've got 1, 2, 3 2 O's. They were the Giro, All Might 3, and another All Might 3. Surprisingly, I
Okay.
had a good matchup against All Might 3.
It's
Um,
I guess it commit a lot of foundations to draw cards.
yeah, that kind of does it in for him.
He really
Uh,
relies on putting together like some strings, and once you're playing like your 4th attack, that's where Toru 2 really gets you, I think.
exactly. Yeah, we have to commit more than just 2 or 1. The Giro specifically, I think, was like my favorite match of the day because
Okay.
it was a stat strike Giro, and that's what Toru I think was made for. Was for the stat strike. They kept trying to do their thing, and I was like, I'll just bounce it back to your hand if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I think that was my favorite.
A, a clean answer to both Staff Strike, attacks played after Staff Strike, and the future is now. So
Exactly.
definitely a big meta pick. Um, do you expect to see more Toru 2s coming out of the woodwork? Do you think she's going to remain relevant for set 5 while we're on the topic of meta call? Or do Do you think that set 5 is going to shake things up in a different direction?
Man, I really hope she stays in the. I hope more people play her because like, she's super super cool. Like her play style is like really 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 fun. I think. But I think I guess this current strategy is gonna die out a little bit because there's a lot of stun hate coming up in the next set. So I might have to like change some things around and maybe work around all the stun hate. I think that's probably gonna change up a little bit. But I hope she's played a lot more than she is
Okay,
now.
I can dig it. I can dig it. Um, Talking still about the other matches, you said that you had the 3-2-0s. Were the other matches 2-1s, or did you have any 1-0s?
They were 2-1s. Yeah, the other
Okay.
ones were 2-1s.
So you're able to get 3 games in still most of the time, or at least half the time. I'm curious, how long did your games go? Were you finding yourself in deadlock a lot? Did your rivals go to deadlock to try and compensate for the response commit? Was there like a sweet spot where you found your deck at like 8 or 9 foundations where you got like your maximum bonus and you could still punish deadlock? Talk to me about like longer games.
Yeah, for me, I hardly found myself ever going to deadlock because I didn't want to worry about whatever your cards did. So I was just like, I'll stay at 10 and then be happy. However, my opponents were like, you've got like no deadlock on your deck. I'll just go into deadlock. But that's what she wants. Toru wants you to go into deadlock because that block modifier goes up for every 4. People would be at 12. I'm like, here's 4 speed, basically, 5 speed, basically. Go ahead and try to block this, you know. So I think that's the advantage to having no deadlock for Toru at least is the more you build, the less you can try to block because the modifier is
Right.
so huge. Yeah. So I think that was a little bit of an advantage for me.
Yeah, it's really important to note that so like the math doesn't seem favorable at first, right? I get to build 4 foundations. You only get to stress my block like 1 extra. But that's 1 extra per attack. And then on top of that, not many other characters actually scale. So even if it seems like 4 foundations just for +1 speed, if you want to put it that way, doesn't seem like a great exchange. The fact of the matter is that a character like Tokoyami, who gives like +1/+1 basically, or only gives +1 speed from a summon, and characters like Asui 1, who only give 2 speed per attack, they don't scale at all. So the more foundations you build, the easier all their attacks become to block, comparatively. But for Toru, it does add up. And I like that you pointed that out because I really have a bad habit of going to like exactly 11 foundations. And I especially do it against Toru too, because I go, okay, if I go to 12, I'm going to have like the next level of the block modifier unlocked. But I never remember that like they're also usually playing like the most heinous deadlock of all time. And that was one thing I noticed from your deck was that you really don't have too many deadlock threats. So I was worried that you found yourself in a place where you had to end the game early. But it sounds like people at 14, 15 foundations just weren't an issue for you.
Yeah, no, definitely not because the block mod was there, and if I had basic training on board, I would get another speed. So that just made everything harder to block, and you have to use a lot more resources to try to block one attack. This
Okay.
has made it better for me to play the game, I think.
Awesome. Yeah, that's one of the reasons I really like doing these interviews is because that's not an insight that I would have. Like the number one thing I would think about when playing Tower 2 is like I gotta have some kind of like crazy good deadlock. And really, I mean, Toru plus Indiscriminate both scaling based on rival foundations the way that they do. I think that it. Would you say that that makes it so your offense always stays relevant no matter how many foundations your rival has?
Oh, definitely, definitely. Like, I try to get all the low blocks out with invisible first, and then if they don't block it, it kind of makes it harder for the indiscriminate to hit later on. But
Hmm.
if the speed's so fast, like it's gonna be hard either way to block it. So might as well just launch it if they have a lot of foundations up, you know? Because if they check a 3, then you got it puts you in a situation where you have to check a 5 sometimes to pass it, and that's like it's a 50-50 shot.
That's a really good point. You bring up invisible infiltration is like the perfect pathway to indiscriminate. It's the same zone. It scales similarly, but this time it can count ready foundations too. So while it's probably not going to be as big, it's going to be the same speed, the same zone, and it's really a 3 difficulty attack. So it's pretty low risk, I would say. It's an ambiguous opener, and if your rival has 14 foundations, that's still a 3 low for 8 with Toru Enhance is like a 7 low for 8. That's a really solid poke.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I love it. It's a really good card.
I gotta ask about one card in the deck in particular, though. I don't know if this was a you thing, if this was a Mike Hardiman thing, but I gotta ask about the Cat Pounce. Was the Cat Pounce a your idea? Was that from Mike Hardiman? Where did the Cat Pounce come from?
That was all Mark Hardiman.
Okay.
He had the genius idea to stick it in the deck, and at first when I played it, I was like, "This is a little weird. Why would I want to remove an attack to grab something?" Then I was like, "Wait a minute. If I don't have indiscriminate, I just pick it up. If I don't have home run combo, just pick it up." Like
Mhm.
that's it seems really good to trade a jolt or like something pretty small to like get your huge attack. So that was all my Hardiman right there.
Okay. How often was it useful for you, or like how many times did you go, man, I'm super glad I had this basically 5th copy of an attack in my deck?
A bunch during not much during top cuts, but like Swiss, it happened a bunch more than you think. I would have a jolt, and I was like, this can't get through. But then I play the cat pounce, bring up a indiscriminate, and suddenly I like, oh, I probably have game here. Stun one and the jolts in the momentum and all that. Like, it happened a lot more than you think.
Okay, awesome. I can dig it. It's a card that seems really tough for me to include because every time I draw it by itself and I don't have an attack to get rid of, or a lot of times I'll just draw like indiscriminate and Cat Pounce, and I'm like, man, I wish Cat Pounce was like any other attack. Did that ever once come up, or were you pretty much always able to upgrade a different card in your hand?
No, that happened a lot in top cuts. It was
Okay.
always like the lone card in my hand. But the plus side about it is as a 2 mid block, so I was like, it's a good block at least if I wanna use as a block next turn.
Yeah, I would say if anyone could change the zone on the attack, then that wasn't like a ragdoll only ability, I could definitely feel a lot better about it. But
I
sending a
think so.
5 difficulty hardened jab at my opponent doesn't feel too great.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so we've talked about the deck, we've talked about top cuts. Let's talk about the actual time frame after winning the event. What was going through your mind? Because let's start, I guess, a little bit with game one. When game one happened, right? I think the most pivotal moment, the moment on most people's minds, is the first Toru response, where Tony plays the back alley haymaker, I think on an 8. And by the way, just absolutely beautiful blocking on that turn. I can't stress enough
Thank you.
the block with the mid block, save the +1 high for a more threatening, higher damage Jiro move. Shoring up the idea that you don't have to take full damage, right? You're going to get poked, you're going to take something, but you don't have to take a full 8 damage poke. But then saving the high block for later. When he plays the back alley and he pays for it down to the 1 foundation, what was going through your mind at that point?
I was like, "Are you wow, that's crazy." Because I have, like, an indiscriminate in my hand, I was like, "Huh. If you pass back, it's gonna be pretty big next turn." But yeah, I was I don't know, just passing that kind of felt a little bit dangerous because Toru was ready, and I was like, "Well, I could just bounce it back and then try to leave a 3 on top." So I don't know, it just felt a little I don't know the right words to describe it, but it felt like I don't know. I don't know how to describe
I
it.
would feel
It's just
blessed. That's how I would feel. I would
yeah,
feel,
I was feeling a little blessed to, like, have that
yeah.
happen, I guess.
Because in my mind, when I saw the move, I thought for sure he was going to play the futures now on a 6, commit the last foundation, and then, play the back alley on a 5 with a whole bunch of extra stats. But then I realized that A, that's not going to be lethal anyways, and B, committing his specialist of sound was, a complete death sentence pretty much for anything. So, yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. And, yeah, Chad's pointing out inexperience on the Toru matchup. It's one of those things where I was really curious. He said he had never played against the Toru before, but So it's easy to walk into it the first time. The second game, when he swapped into Monoma, did that scare you? Did you not want to deal with like a taste of your own medicine?
A little bit. It did scare me a little bit because I know like Friday before the regional, I played one of my locals who also plays Toru, but on water and smoked me out the water. Like blew me
Okay.
out. I was like, "Whew,
Literally took you
okay."
from the water symbol to the air symbol, out of the water.
Exactly. Yeah, pretty much.
Turned you into the
So
smoke symbol.
yeah. So I didn't feel too great if I ever played the mirror. So I was like, this is essentially a mirror. Like I have to like adapt or die here, you know? I didn't feel
Yeah.
too good about it.
It's Toru but plus 1 damage, and we were joking that he basically turned his character into one with nature.
Yep. Yeah, pretty much. His moment nature
for,
on pace.
for most of the game, he gets +2 to your block mod and +1 damage by giving the attack taunt, and I thought that was super funny because you had talked about earlier. Now in the interview, it's even funnier that you're like, well, one with nature's out of the way, playing Toru instead, which is very similar, right? And then he's got Toru, but with the actual damage pump. And, sure enough, Tony manages to take game two. Tell me about going into game three. Where was your mindset? Where was your mentality at game three? Did you think maybe he might go back to Jiro and only play Monoma going first? Give me some thoughts on what you remember from that experience.
What I remember is like I was thinking, man, I got this far. There's no way I could lose. Like I have to try my hardest to like bounce back and like just trying to play through the tour response. I was like, I know how everybody feels now. That's insane. So I would have to try to make him use the tour response early so I could string out. And thankfully, it
Mhm.
happened like a couple times during the kill turn and the final turn. So that was my thoughts. I had to try to get him to use the response as early as possible so I could try to string out and try to get the damage in when I can.
Okay, okay. I yeah, I think that it's super interesting. I don't know if it's a call I would ever make personally, but at the same time, thinking about it critically, right? Toru gets a bigger bonus based on the rival having more foundations. Jiro gets a bigger bonus based on giving herself extra difficulty. And the best ways to counter that difficulty are countered by Toru's response. So I wasn't a huge fan of it at first, but the more I think about the matchup, the more the Monoma sideboard choice makes sense. When it came to game three, though, you kind of had you pretty much had all the outs, right? You had the indiscriminate from game one, where you're able to just basically show them the two indiscriminates, and then you had a very similar experience game three, where I don't even think you had to go through all the checks. You were able to just show them your hand, basically. Was there ever a moment before the game was over where you knew that you had won the tournament?
Yeah, when I drew the two indiscriminates, I was like, 6 plus 5, it's 11, 22. Oh, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna deal 4 damage after that, and I should be fine. And
Okay.
thankfully, I had the invisible infiltration. I was like, this could be, it could be 4. So I was like, if I play it out and don't check badly, I think I've got this. Because I think I did the math. I was like, he can't block anything with the Toru response or enhance. If I use feeling cute, he can't block anything. If I have earphone jack out, I was like, maybe I've got this. Maybe we can give it a go. And thankfully, I checked pretty okay during that last turn.
Nice. That's awesome. I always love I call it the winner's pace. Whenever you notice a player is like starting to play quickly, usually the opponent's also tapped out and they have like nothing they can really respond with. And you can just tell like someone knows that they've won the game now and they're trying not to mess it up and overthink it. And so there was definitely those moments in grand finals. Let's talk a little bit like right after what happened. What right after the match was over though. Tell me how you were feeling. Tell me anything that happened because they cut to break on the cast to get ready for the winners interviews. But what was going through your mind right after the match was over?
A bunch of relief. Man, I was feeling stressed the entire day, and it just felt so good to be over with the tournament, have it all. Of course, I kind of congratulated Tony because he had an amazing run. Like his deck was comprised of like set 1 and 2 cards and like the one futures now. Like that's amazing. How can you get that far with like no set 3 or 4 at all? It's because he's a good player. That's how he got that far. So congratulated him on his run. I said he had a good run. Got met up with my guy George, and I and then got prepped for interviews. That's basically what happened. I just felt a bunch of relief, congratulated, and then got some standing ovations. I guess there's a lot of clapping in the convention center.
Very cool stuff. That is the one thing I wish I might have to go back and rewatch it. I love it when they keep the cameras rolling right, and you can see like the handshakes go down, and usually like some people run over. There's some hugging and things like that, and I'm very excited that now we get actual coverage because way back in the dark ages, pre MHA, old head BS. We didn't really get much coverage and stuff like that, so I was very excited to get to see the handshakes come out in the winners interviews. How does it feel doing? Have you ever done like an interview on a stream for a card game before?
Ever. That was my first ever time doing one.
Yeah. I forgot to ask, I guess at the beginning, have you ever played any other card games, or is MHA like your first competitive,
right.
serious card game?
Competitively, I've played a little bit of Pokemon. In fact, I think that was the first card game I've ever played before MHA was Pokemon. My friend basically built a deck for me. He's like, "Here you go." I'm like, "Okay, I guess I'll start playing at locals." And I've always been a fan of like the weird decks. Like, I don't know how much you know about Pokemon, but there's a deck, a little bit. There's,
Not right now. I'm not. I'm
Beedrill.
not current. I'm not current. I'll say that.
Okay, well, this is like an old deck. There's like a
Okay.
Beedrill deck where if you
For
have
for
four
reference,
Beedrill.
my favorite Pokemon deck ever is Wailord Stall.
Oh, okay.
The deck that beat
I got
itself in extra minutes.
Got it. So I had this Beedrill deck where if you had 4 Beedrill on board, you can just snipe anything on the field for 200 damage, one for each Beedrill. And
Okay, yeah,
that
they
one
have
was
like
like
the
one of my favorites to
Pokebody.
ever play. Yeah, I think so. So that was one of my favorites. I'm a fan of like all the weird decks, and I think Toru kind of like classifies under the weird decks.
Okay, I
Oh, and I
can
played a
dig
little
it.
bit of Yu-Gi-Oh in like high school, but not that much. I played Exodia. It's pretty weird.
Every now and then I log on to Master Duel and I play FTK Exodia, where I just try to draw Royal Magical Library. I can't imagine people even stay at their computer. Like, if I don't win turn one, I scoop. But
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. I like a lot of the weird Pokemon decks as well. I'm a big fan of, like I said, the Wailord Stall, which was like a weird answer to the Marsh Stomp control deck. I think it was the one that like locks you out of playing item cards. It's been a hot minute. And then the what's the other one I'm trying to think of? There's one where I think it's like you evolve Crobat, and you get to like place damage counters every time you evolve it, and so like you're trying to scoop it off your bench and re-evolve it over time and stuff like that. And so I like decks like that. I like the uninteractive, like kind of lame-o Pokemon decks that not a lot of people are fans of.
Yeah. My least favorite one was there's like mill deck. I forgot what it was called, but it basically just like use an attack, mill 4 cards off your deck, and then pass back to you, and you're just like, I have to take everything out now, and you can't take them out before they mill you out. That was like a really
Yeah.
frustrating one to deal with.
Yeah, milling Pokemon is super weird because the finite resource is usually your deck, and stuff that shuffles cards back into your deck is like very not super rare, but like it's a premium because they know how abusable certain loops get. I remember there's like an Excel bike plus a recycle card combo that had to be dealt with for like an Eternal format, stuff like that. So that's it's pretty interesting. What would you say is like the weirdest deck you've played in MHA, or like the weirdest strategy?
President Mike. That
Yeah.
guy is super sick. I built a Chaos President Mike that had Dark Shadow Ruin in it and Summon Dark Shadow, and I thought it was pretty cool. But the problem was getting Summon Dark Shadow in your hand, so that's why people play Tokoyami. So it wasn't that great, but I really love President Mike. One, I think it is
Okay, the six hander, right?
6-hander. Yeah, you commit,
Okay.
remove something, and if it's a non-attack, you ready your character.
So do you try to play mill with him, or do you use him primarily for the speed buff?
Oh, for the speed. I try to get like huge attacks. I play Yeah. Yeah is like my favorite card in the game. Like
Okay.
ever. It's super sick.
Or we finally found it. Somewhere out there, there's a fan of every card, and we finally found Yaz
Yeah,
number one fan.
I want to collect like I don't have a playset yet. I'm trying to find one more card. I think for of the Pasadena regional whatever promo.
This one?
That one. That's the one.
I'll send you
Yeah,
one.
I'm
I
trying to
got
find
two
one
of
more.
them sitting right here. I'll send you one.
Appreciate
Well,
it. Thank you.
yeah, but yeah, here I'll send you two. You have to sign one and send one back to me.
Okay.
How about
I'll
that?
sign
And
one.
we'll get you.
I got
We'll get you to sign Yaz. We'll get you to sign Yaz instead of Toru 2s.
it. Okay, sounds good.
Awesome. All right. Yeah, I'll hit you up. Remind me after the podcast. I'll forget. I got Swiss cheese brain. But yeah, I've been sitting on that RLE promo for the longest time.
Yeah,
I got
couldn't
them.
find like yeah.
I think I actually got those at the HLC, which is
You can
weird.
get them there?
Huh?
Was it like were they just like extra prize support or what was it?
I think it was part of casting, or it was stuff. It was promos that they owed me and just hadn't gotten to me yet, something like that. I just got a stack of stuff at the HLC and I didn't complain.
That's sick.
You know.
That's cool.
Yeah, I ended up getting the HLC stamped character cards, which I ended up selling to Pippa actually. So, I was like, as soon as I saw those, I was like, all right, I'm not going to complain. They gave me something.
Gotta bother her to see that later because I didn't know she had those.
Yeah, I was there to cast, man. I'm a huge fan of watching the game, talking about the game, and so it was absolutely just cool to be there for that whole weekend. I guess my next question for you is talking about the events in the future. Do you have any events that you're planning to participate in? We've got the Unfun Stuff webcam RLE coming up. We've got the season 2 in-person RLEs. Have you made any plans, or are you hoping to make plans to catch any of these upcoming regionals?
Not right now. I would love to play in the Unfun Stuff regional, but my internet's pretty shoddy and not that reliable. So if I do play, I might just play 3 and drop because, well, I guess play until like I disconnect because that's always frustrating.
Right.
And then the only one's close to me is Las Vegas, and it's like in September. I don't have any plans to go right now, but maybe in the future, if like I get a few people that want to go, we can share expenses. I think that'd be kind of cool. Make a little trip for Vegas.
The Vegas one should be a pretty good time. I don't know where the venue is at right now. They've got my locals is organizing it, but they're trying to rent out like a bigger venue. They've got a decent sized space, and they've got that's why it's kind of I'm torn on it because like their actual store is super nice. It's really clean. There's plenty of space. Like everything's like just set up perfect. Like it's not like over the top. It's like just a little corner store, in the middle of a shopping center. But yet they've like spaced things out right. The tables are nice, have nice mats, all that stuff. They just got like new chairs and new carpet. Like it's all super cool. But they're anticipating more than 20 tables. So
Yeah.
But yeah, I Dark Side Games I believe is going to be doing the Vegas one. So obviously that's like 5 months away or something. 4 or 5 months away. But if you guys can make it out to Vegas for that should be an awesome event. It'll be probably right around season 6 dropping. I'd have to assume if. Tinfoil hat time. I don't have it on me, but we were wearing the tinfoil hats during the grand finals. I lost mine, but the tinfoil hat theory is that should be the first RLE where jet burn is legal. That is 100% a rumor. That is my personal theory. I did not get that from anyone or any kind of insider knowledge. I just personally think that given the time frame and how they usually do events and stuff, September, October release right into a Vegas RLE makes a bunch of sense. So yeah, if you can make it down, that'd be awesome. And Vegas is one of the easiest places to get around, like with Ubers, one of the best places for busing and hotels, stuff like that. So if you can make it to Vegas, I think you guys should definitely try to give it a shot.
I'll try my hardest to get there. Sounds fun.
Yeah. And then as far as the upcoming webcam event goes, I'm probably in the same boat you are. I'm probably going to try and stream my matches, and I fully expect my internet to just go out at some point, or my camera to shut off. I was having issues with nationals, and I did not stream during nationals. I streamed my Osoi 2 run, but I ran into Fourth Kind, or it was Ochako 2, then Fourth Kind, and then Recovery Girl trying to play Osoi 2, and I said, you know what? Have a good day.
Yeah, I guess when you run up to like that lineup, you're just like, well, okay, I guess I'm done for today. It's all right.
Yeah, I forgot to clip it, and it bothers me or someone clipped it. I forgot to save it, whatever. But it might be on YouTube. I don't think so though. But I played Ochako 2, and I was like, okay, well, it's the Orlando winning regional deck, whatever. I was 1 5 check away from winning. It was tough, and I was like, all right, it's like the best deck. That guy made top cuts. It's all good. I go up against Order Fourth Kind, and I'm like, okay, Kansas City RLE championship deck. Gotta expect that. It's whatever. I mean, my deck was teched for dealing with 5-handers a little bit. I had like my own sauce for it, and I lost, and I was like, all right, well, I'll keep playing for the content. But, and I told my chat, I'm like, you know what though, guys? If I will continue to play until I run into a Recovery Girl. If I meet a Recovery Girl, I'm just gonna dip. It's webcam. I don't want to ask what's in their discard pile. I'm O2. There's no way I'm gonna fight a Recovery Girl at O2 anyways. They're all gonna have ties. I'd have to have a tie to get up to the Recovery Girl bracket. And I immediately sit down with another O2 and they're playing Recovery Girl, and I'm like, no offense, dude. Have a good one. I'm going to go watch the rest of the tournament. And
that's brutal.
I felt kind of bad because, they're sticking around to get promos. And I don't even think you had to stick around for promos. But, they're like, I'm just here to play for fun. And I was like, yeah, me too. And they revealed their character. And I was like, never mind.
You're not having fun.
So, hopefully that wasn't rude. I don't think it was. But, that's just kind of where I was at, where I was like, I'm so tired of trying to deal 33 damage and coming up like one short. I was one short of lethal from the Fourth Kind. I was one foundation short both times because I had a a floating around my babies for the second one, right? So if I could have had one extra foundation either time, I would have passed the check and had the damage, right? So it was just so close. I was like, I'm not going to try to even deal 30 to a Recovery Girl.
No, yeah, I get it. It's a little tough.
Yeah.
Especially with Osprey too. How does that deck work? Because I have no clue what it's about.
So the way it works, and this is my personal philosophy, I guess. I don't know how much people really put time into it, but you need to roll the speed bonus. There is this weird, people have this mini game of block punishment where it's oh, if you block my attack, I get a bunch of bonus damage, right? And there's enough throw hate that even if you play the ranged throws, it's not super reliable. The ranged throws are all 5 difficulty, and you have to run 2 checks. So playing them second doesn't really work as punishment. And so to me, the way that I saw the deck was you need to have attacks that get through so that you get the +2 speed to make it so they keep going through. Because once they don't block the first one, they get harder to block. And if they didn't block the easy one, then they shouldn't be able to block the harder one, is the philosophy. And there is just enough card pool clogging where you can keep rolling +2, +4. And if I told you there's a 6 hand size character out there who gives +2 speed and +4 damage to all their attacks, that sounds really good.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Dobby in the sense where it's it starts after the first one. Dobby 1, it's next one gets 3, next one gets 3, and that's a lot of numbers. And that's the game plan I had, and it was really good in testing against decks like Jiro. It was really good in testing against decks like Momo, because I was playing Gale Force Punch to snipe nasty stuff. And if you can get on top of people early enough with a 6-speed move, they can't block it, you roll your speed bonus. And I was also playing Prominence Burn. I just a lot of just big meaty boys, just trying to capitalize on, even if my character's not good, these attacks are really good. But yeah, it's my professional analysis is that the character doesn't work.
Okay.
Maybe with Tabi's support, maybe Tabi's got something going on, but he has like this weird theme of keeping the card pool clear, and that's not really what I'm trying to do with the Asui deck. So,
That's true. Yeah. Yeah.
um,
No, this stuff was really, really good in like the pre-release. Surprisingly, giving one speed to like pretty much every move was pretty cool.
yeah,
With like food, I
and
think.
yeah, and there's definitely a point where like not every deck was playing speed hate, and so I had played a tiny bit of Asui 2 on life with like gravity lift, passing the torch, and just being like, my character's blank and I'm still an okay deck, and like felt good about that. And then once I get to start doing, range stuff with good bonuses, it starts to feel like a real deck. And just back then, it was like people sometimes just couldn't block. Now I'm playing against ice gliding. I'm playing against um, mediators. Ochako has -3 speed on her face, so she can block a gale force punch. What was the other deck? Oh, I was playing against Death. Not Death. His name's Death Arms, but I was playing against Earth Death Arms in testing as well. And like Earth has shock absorption, I'll protect you, like someone with style for the stun attack. So a lot of defense has just really been upgraded, and I think we're finally in a good spot where like every deck can feel okay about trying to play defensive cards. And I'm really cool with that, although release is still kind of obnoxious.
Yeah, really, she's too good. Actually, funny story. Like before we even got to Pasadena, I was talking to my friend Jordan in the car. He's like, "What cards are really busted?" And he goes, "Release." I'm like, "Is release busted?" And I really thought about it. I was like, "Yeah, release is busted. A
Release
zero
is
diff that you
busted.
can blow. Yeah, blow up a foundation +2 to the check is like really, really busted. Really, really cracked."
Yeah, especially compared to something like Rescue Completed, where you can play both together and get like massive gains. But Rescue Completed gets stunned out like really bad. But Release makes it so that stun just isn't that bad in general. And so slowly, like Rescue Completed got phased out of a lot of decks. I don't even know if Momos play Rescue Completed anymore. And she has Release on face, but they play like 2 to 4 copies of Release. So that should tell
Yeah,
you
pretty
something
good.
right there.
Yeah, staple.
Yeah, I think
Oh, thank you.
I think release is in this weird spot where sometimes it feels like an incredibly fair cost, like early game. It's like incredibly fair that if I have to destroy 3 foundations to block 3 attacks, I deserve that. I deserve to blow up half my turn 1 build to survive. Um, but once you get to like the middle part of the game and you've got like replacement foundations through Momo or Precious Lesson or both, because those are her symbols.
He's
Small
Momo.
and limber refunds. There does get to be a point where release is starting to really punch above its 0 difficulty, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a little too good right now. Especially when you're like built up and all that.
Yeah.
Doesn't really hurt as much.
Luckily, though, there is a card coming out in Undaunted Raid that I expect a lot of people to be playing that kind of shuts off release, and it's the secret rare repeated 100% smash. And so that one says if it's 10 damage or more, you got to put some damage into it, but checks can't be modified. So you can start off with it as your first attack, and if you're Midoriya 4, you can just make it 10 damage and shut off release. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about meta cards that might shake things up. When it comes to set 5, are there any cards that stick out to you as massive game changers, or what do you think will be like the most important cards coming out of Undaunted Raid?
I'm gonna have to look at the set right now because I really haven't been keeping up with set 5.
Okay.
Besides the pre-release. So let's go take a look and see what. I'm gonna look at
Well,
attacks
let's.
because
Have you at least seen the secret rares?
I've seen a little bit of them. I don't know what they do like off the top of my.
Okay, fair enough.
Um,
Because there's, I think it's 4 attacks and like 2 actions,
mhm.
and I think some of them are gonna be super super important. I think the actions are pretty underrated though. Manifest and Aspirant to Shield. I keep hearing people say that they'll be like pretty cheap. They won't be super important, but one of them is a breaker one that makes your rival commit a foundation. So like even if they and it goes to momentum. So like even if they stop their turn cold turkey, you get to stun one and get a momentum on a +1 mid block. That one sounds pretty amazing.
How
I
is
mean
that not good? That sounds great.
yeah. The first enhance from momentum is kind of eh.
Mm.
That one I'm not, it's capped at 4, but still, discard a momentum for 4 damage is certainly not a bad rate.
Right. Let's see.
Manifest, I've been a little surprised with how good it feels. Um, it sharing a block zone with Electric Jolt is a little sketch, but I love blocking with an Electric Jolt, and then using Manifest to put it in my momentum and draw a card. That's always a lot of fun.
Oh, that's the one. I see. Been hearing a lot about that card, Manifest. Let's see. I know there's a card I played with yesterday that was, I think, pretty good. I'm not sure if it's like meta defining or meta changing, but it was like a Lemillion Foundation that said if you play a breaker, flip and cancel it. I think that might be pretty cool to play with. Uh, I don't know how much breakers in the set, but I know like there's a lot of breaker outside the set. So that could stop a lot of game plans that want to stop you, like breaker stuff.
There is quite a bit of breaker this set. There is mostly because Chronostasis is in the set. I feel like they added a ton of breaker cards. I know overall has like 2 at least. He's got an attack with breaker and a foundation with breaker. But you have to be overall for the breaker on the foundation. Chronostasis trigger is an SR with breaker 2. I think the other gun move, there's like 3 gun moves. Deadly Fire is the low block that doesn't have breaker, but the other 2 gun moves have breaker. Trying to remember the name. I can't remember. It's definitely another gun. Oh, it's Point Blank Shot. Point Blank Shot has. I always forget that one because I try to remember it's the name of the Dungeons and Dragons feat that like every ranger has to take in 3rd edition. It's like a feat that's on every single archery tree starts with Point Blank Shot, so it's just like, all right, I guess I have to take this. But yeah, that one has breaker 1, and that one is a card that I'm looking for to be really important for stuff like draft. It becomes like hard to block. It reduces speed. It pumps your own speed, which is really nice. Yeah, I think Passing Through Walls has a chance to be a pretty solid sideboard card. If I'm not mistaken, I think that one checks a 6. For it Pass Through Walls, yeah, it is a 6 check. But it does have 2 responsive abilities that requires your opponent to be playing specific things. But those specific things are kind of getting a big buff, which is Breaker, like we just talked about. And then after your rival plays an ability on an asset. So we're getting more asset hate too. And Mimic is looking pretty good.
Yeah, Mimic looks super, super sick. And of course, I forgot to mention, like Midoriya 4, like that guy's just going to be everywhere. That could be meta defining. For sure.
Yeah, Midoriya 4 definitely is going to come out the gate swinging. I think it's easily the best Deku they've ever printed. Everyone who just is like, I want to play Deku because he's my favorite character, probably going to hop on that character first. The other Deku 2, funny enough, becomes way more playable in a world without One with Nature. Right? Because before you're like, well, I can just build this foundation and I'm basically Deku 2.
Yeah, basically.
If you had 3 One with Natures down, you were literally better.
Because you would just card and you get a bunch of free damage. I'm like, okay, I guess.
Yeah, you'd get 2 speed and 3 damage, and they can't even reduce that speed. So, yeah, I think a lot of people are super duper hype. Hopefully, they officially preview all of the Plus Ultra cards. I know those have been going around, but I'm not going to show them off or talk about them on the stream here. But those are the only cards we need left to look at to get a full picture of the upcoming format. But I want to ask you, have you seen all the characters from Set 5 at least?
Not all of them, but I do have a favorite, Kirishima 3. that guy
Okay.
speaks to my heart. That guy
Okay.
speaks to my
Okay.
heart specifically. Yeah. I really wanna have the control type, like destroy your board type character, and Kirishima 3 seems like that guy, especially with his kit that I played like a little bit with yesterday. Like it feels really, really good to play Kirishima 3.
Okay, yeah, I've been playing his stuff recently in a Death Bakugo list, and it felt really nice. So I can dig that. His flash attack. Have you played with his flash attack at all?
No, I haven't.
Oh, his flash attack is super nutty, and I think people are not talking about it enough. So he's got like a 3 low for 4 difficulty flash. Not a big deal, but it says if it deals damage, you can destroy a foundation, and your rival has to destroy 2 face downs.
That sounds pretty good.
Yeah, and then if you think about it, if they fully block it, you can respond Kirishima and destroy
And make
a foundation. They have to destroy one.
so no
So,
matter what, they're gonna blow something up.
right, no matter what, you're gonna get something for it. And then on top of that, I think the really interesting part about it is, if I'm not mistaken, oh, it's an enhance. It's not a response. I was thinking that Kirishima's enhance was a response where you could punch them for partialing it. So it's like doubly worse. Where because I don't think he. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. His is an enhance, but still, either way, it's still the destroy one is a response. So it's pretty tough. And then in deadlock, if they completely block it, they destroy 3 foundations, which you can make 4 with Kirishima. So yeah, that's what I'm definitely looking out for. That is like the tempo poke that I think the game has really been missing. You have a 7-hander that's not putting a bunch of stats on things. It's not drawing a million cards like Toga, who's also putting stats on things, just not a bunch. But it is controlling your resources and controlling the tempo of the game. And so I know Jose Narono is a big Kirishima 3 fan. That might be a deck that I have to pick up too now.
Yeah, no, it's looking really, really sick. I really want to like start deck building with it as soon as like the full set drops and everything.
Yeah.
I haven't taken a look like at the set at all besides those few like cards, but I'm really excited to like dig deep and try to see what I could do.
I've been playing on stream on TTS. I don't know if you guys have been watching, but I've been playing about half the nights every week. Every chance I get to stream, I've been trying to go live and play some TTS. And I gotta say, Kirishima 3 has given me a lot of trouble whenever I've played against it. It seems pretty strong right out the gate. Mirio, everyone who's played Mirio against me has absolutely smoked me. At least one game out of the 3. And then the one thing I'm really surprised about is I'm not fighting a lot of overhauls.
Mm. Yeah, it's a little surprising because like out the gate, when you look at the two like starter characters, Mario seems like the weakest of the two, you know? But then you actually play with them, and Mario's is way stronger than like Overhaul by like a long shot. Especially if like you soup it up with like a bunch of cards like from previous sets and set 5, like he's really, really strong. Overhaul, I don't not so much. Not from what I've seen.
I think, I think Overhaul is one of those characters where he gets to a board state where he's like nigh unbeatable, and he gets to a point where he's got so many like cheesy plays that it just becomes like hard to deal with. But Mirio just comes out the gate swinging, like brain off, pick a zone. You're not gonna have enough, like even if every card in your hand is the right zone, like you can do the math to know that you'll get through, right? And then on top of that, his enhance to discard a momentum and set an attack down to 0 has just been surprisingly difficult to play around.
Yeah, no, that thing is a nightmare. My friend George, he built a Mario on I think the day one he was released or something, like pretty close to it. Um, and I was playing against my Toru, and I was like, all right, here's indiscriminate for like a million, catch, you're dead. He's like, nope, I'll just make it 0. I'm like, oh, I forgot that was the thing. It's really, really tough to play around. It's super, super difficult.
Yeah, it's like similar to like we were talking about the inexperience against Toru 2, right? Almost at least like once per game, usually in the first game, I walk right into it. I'll be like indiscriminate, +4, whatever, and they're like, all right, it's 0. And I'm just like, +1 damage? Like, send it for, I get a momentum at least.
I'll lose Upton at least.
Yeah.
That's why Blades is in the deck for that matchup.
Yeah.
3.
I definitely remember on release or on spoil, on reveal, whatever, everyone looked at just the two characters and they're like, man, overall has like a book of text. He's got to be better. And then you actually play the games out and it's like, yeah, overall has life. He's got Earth, but he has to build from his hand. He has to get his card draw going is kind of weird. His defensive ability kind of makes you play a little risky, or else you have to like discard a card and it gets kind of tough. Meanwhile, Mirio's just like, I'm gonna play my whole hand, bro. 28 me.
20, I gotcha, yeah.
Deal 28 through a 0 reset, you know, through a free block, and it's so.
Feels one-sided. Overall, takes a lot of setup compared to Mirror, which is like up, punch, 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 punch. Are you dead yet? Punch, 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 punch. Keep going. You know.
I do think it's interesting that like once per turn, Overhaul can basically have the right block against Mirio, but it really feels like both decks were meant to play their whole hand out against you and just like dare the other to do the full amount in one turn, you know?
Mm-hmm. Kind of feels like that all for nothing or nothing, you know, try to do 28. Oh, you can't? Cool. Pass back to me and I'll just finish you off if I didn't do it already.
Yeah, I know the most reductionist take I heard was Andrew Holder saying that Mirio's really boring, but I guess he's cool if you just like all your attacks to be indiscriminate shock. And I'm like, bro, have you seen indiscriminate shock? that attack, Carl, that kills people. Like, you know.
Yeah.
Like if I could turn half my attacks into we're out here playing cat pounce to turn one attack and do an I can turn all my attacks into oh, sign me up, you know.
That sounds really sick. Yeah, I can't wait to play with Mirio too. Like when he releases.
Well, Mirio 2, we haven't even played with Mirio 1, bro.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's true. Yeah. But yeah, Overhaul's my boy. When he was previewed, whatever, I was like, oh, this is my character I really want to play. Because I was still on Earth. I was on Nomu at that point. I was like, oh, I'm thinking Earth is going to be really great this set. And then I played Mirio, and I was like, oh, well, I guess Mirio's the answer. I'll just play Mirio now, because he's pretty cool. Kills people.
Also, Chaos just got, like, the biggest glow up. It, like, was good for right when set 3 dropped, right? It got, like, a lot of the Earth stuff. And Tokoyami was really good. Midnight was really good. And then it somehow disappeared. It just vanished off the face of the earth. And now all of a sudden the big three all have Chaos. All their cards are pretty awesome. And now you can just do all kinds of things with momentum off Chaos. It's like it like disappeared for exactly one set.
Yeah, I don't know what happened with that. I don't know why he just kind of like fell off the face of the earth. I know one of my friends, David, he plays a Chaos Tokoyami, and he plays that one promo, the 6 mid for 6. I think it's called Behemoth.
Yeah, Dark Shadow Behemoth.
Oh my god, I don't know what it is about his deck, but I can't get through it like at all. Like he always beats me whenever he plays with it. I think he like found something with Behemoth.
Even as to I guess you start off with it. It's like your first attack. I was thinking Toru bounce it, but
it doesn't feel good to, you know, make him bounce it back, but
that's oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, like the ally thing, like remove a bunch of allies. If it does damage, you'll commit everything. This is really, really scary. That's how he got me once, actually. He played it down. I was like, how many do you have? 8? You have exactly 8? I have to cheerleader it. He goes, all right, here's the second one. I'm like, well, okay. Guess I'll commit everything now. That's fine.
Oh man, yeah. I've actually my little spicy tech for Dark Shadow Behemoth has been to look at it with Ten Guy, the one who can play non-attack ally cards from his discard pile. He's got some really sweet tech. I'm a huge fan of his action card, which zeroes out an attack speed and lets you breaker it. And I think so. The reason I'm the biggest, well, I don't want. I'm getting sidetracked, but so the Dark Shadow Behemoth card with Ten Guy. He self-mills himself, right? He mills already. He's obviously set up to play ally cards, so playing a deck full of just allies doesn't feel too bad. And then he makes your rival discard a card. And Dark Shadow Behemoth is like something that you have to block. And so I'm a big fan of him right now with like just the biggest, chonkiest possible attacks. And then being able to play discard effects like off the back of that seems pretty nice. But I don't think too many people are going to play that character.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he seems pretty cool, like, on face. You just kinda have to, like, find the right deck for him, you know? Like, you can't just plop together cards and be like, "Oh, it works," you know? You have to put some thought into him and try to make him as good as possible.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is his foundation is like super weird, but it's a really strong foundation, and it's kind of like I feel like Mineta gets carried by Grape Rush, the one that becomes a throw, right? It's like it's a draw card, stun a card, 8 damage throw. That's only Mineta can use. Well, he's got a card that clears his whole card pool, and then also gives your next attack -3 damage.
That sounds insane. That
Yeah,
just
like
sounds correct on face.
and you can play it from your discard pile. Like you can tutor it from discard once per turn. So I think I think there's going to be a lot of really crazy defensive traps coming up in set 5, and I think it's going to be pretty tough. I think people are really going to have to work on their offense.
Definitely, definitely. There's a lot of defense in set 5, from what I've seen. So,
Yeah,
we'll just see how the format shakes up, I guess.
yeah. We've got a bunch of evil characters that tutor up the right blocks. We've got ways to clear our card pool and fight against card pool clog. We've got ways to just discard attacks. Chaos has like chaos and air, and yeah, chaos, air, and good have like no, it's water for broken psyche. It's like 4 symbols. There's like 4 symbols that have multiple 2-diff foundations that can basically just let you ignore an attack for 1 momentum. Whether it's cheerleader or decoy duplicate or broken psyche or Mirio's enhance himself. I mean, and then like
Yeah.
Amajiki can zero out an attack just by sneezing on it, like just by having momentum.
Yeah.
Uh, Twice can discard a character card. Like, there's so many ways now.
There's a
And
tattoo
people,
with the instead of the 2.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. So I think we're in for a bit of a grind. Would you say that you prefer grindier matchups, or are you like do you like it when like both decks can grind, or are you like aggro versus control is like a better matchup?
It feels way better to do like to be aggro versus control because like if you stop their aggression, you're like, I feel good, I lived, let's go, I can backswing, right? I think those kind of games are like more satisfying to play.
Okay.
As a control type player, not the aggro guy.
I feel exactly the same way. I am someone who like definitely prefers to have a control archetype. Like I like to play that playstyle, but I actually hate playing control mirrors. Um, Control mirrors really usually feel like the first person to just have more interaction kind of wins, or the first person to uh, have like the uninteractable piece, whatever it is, like a flash attack or something. Like it just it feels absolutely miserable when you're playing 2 grindy decks, and it's like, well, I went first, I'm gonna play a throw. You go second, you're gonna play a throw, and I'm gonna play a throw, and it's just like we're just ticking down the same clock. But for that to exist, you have to have strong aggro decks and strong control decks. And we're going to wind it down a bit here, but I want to get a couple of your closing thoughts on how you think the format going into Undaunted Raid. I know you haven't looked at a whole bunch of stuff, but um, going into the future, if you had to pick like an aggro deck, right, or like an aggro style, what would be the kind of aggro deck that you'd want to play, or like the one you'd want to see?
Aggro deck I want to see.
Yeah, like what would be like your
Ooh,
favorite aggro
you
deck to
know
play?
Rappa. Rappa, I think, sounds really good on face, right? Blow up a foundation, then you can give your check for the attack like +2. Like that sounds really, really good. It sounds like you can kill on turn 2 or turn 3 like very easily. Like accidentally find all the damage and then just blow up your stage and you're like, well, shake my hand, you got it. Like I got this,
Yeah,
yeah.
hit him with the
Shake my
shake my
hand.
hand combo.
Plop,
Yeah,
plop, plop, plop. Here we go. Yeah.
yeah.
Rappa. Rappa might be my favorite.
Okay, I'm a big fan of Rappa. Rappa's my kind of aggro. As someone who doesn't play a ton of aggro, that's very much like the most zero risk. Play my whole hand out. You know, I don't have to actually worry about passing my checks. I just have to worry about your block zones and like other parts. But he does struggle for damage. I will say he has like a 2 check that everyone's really high on, but it starts as like a 3 high for 5.
That's pretty good. 3 hyper revive's pretty good.
Yeah.
I would know.
I mean,
I
it
would
does
know.
like clear your card pool. It gives you a momentum. You typically try to play it 3 times, so it's still really good. I just need people to understand they're very excited about a 3 speed for 5 that has to deal damage for you to actually utilize it, right?
Yeah, right.
So, but bullet punches is pretty high. Okay, and then on the other end of the spectrum, we won't do like all the different levels and speeds, but if you had to play a slower deck, a control deck, you already mentioned Kirishima 3. Would you consider Kirishima 3 like a control deck?
I think so, just based on like how well they can control your board. Like taking pieces that you might want to keep on board and just throwing them away. I think that sounds like a control type character. I think Kirishima could be a control character.
Okay, I can dig it. I can dig it. Yeah, I think that's probably going to be something that I look at. I think Foundation Control is kind of a tough game to play, and I'm really glad they put it on a 7-hander because they've done it on a 6-hander in the past, and trying to kill someone from like 28 health through no foundations is really tough. But you can sometimes do it to a 20 health character. So, the putting it on the 7-hander feels right, but at the same time, it's really risky because a 7-hander is going to already outbuild you. And if they have 10 foundations while you have 2, it's not going to feel very good at all.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm glad they gave him 20 health because it'd be annoying to deal with like 28 or even 30.
Yeah.
It'd be a little broken, little broken.
Absolutely, yeah. And then the one time they did put it on a 7-hander in the past, it was like playing against Jiro. It was like a 7-hander who had flash attacks and all breakers. So like every block was a breaker too. And it was like if Jiro was destroying your foundations at the start of every turn, like they just sniped one. So it was pretty rough.
Yeah.
All right, I want to give you this opportunity before we say goodbye to give any shout outs you want, acknowledge anyone from your local community, anyone else pretty much in the community at all. This will be like your moment to put a spotlight on them.
Cool. I saw my mom in chat. I want to say hi to my mom. She's right there watching at home. I'd like to give a shout out to my boys for playtesting with me. George, David, TC, Jalem, Lance, pretty much everybody from GGW. I'm sorry if I missed anyone. There's a lot of people. Pippa. Like to give a shout out to Psycho Turtle Collectibles because they were the shop that got me started on my journey. And shout out to you for having me on the podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. I love the insight. I learned a lot about the matchup. There's so much to this game where you can look at something on paper, you have an idea about how it's going to go, and then if you really put the time and the effort in, I really think that you'll learn something new about those matchups all the time. And I am so glad that Toru 2 won this event, that you won this event, because it has opened my eyes up to a lot of the way that the format is right now. And so I hope to see you at more events in the future. I really hope that you can make it out here to Vegas because we need more players who can really think outside the box. And I think you managed to achieve that. You looked at what is the solution to the format. You picked you picked a great person to get influence from. Mike Hardiman, one of the best players. I don't know if you go to UVS Ultra, you type Mike Hardiman into the card name box, there's going to be a couple cards that come up. Him and his dog are on a couple different cards, actually. So, very, very cool stuff. So definitely go check those out. For any of you new players out there in the chat, we used to get champion cards. You could become a character card in the game if you won a world championship or a national championship. And so Mike Hardman, I believe, has two character cards. So very, very cool stuff. But I am Unfun Stuff sponsored, so I'm legally required to tell you guys to go pre-order your Undaunted raid at unfunstuff.com. Then go sign up for the Webcam Regional on July 15th if you haven't already. Thank you once again, Salvador, for joining me. But that's going to do it for this episode of Orange Card, Blue Card. I will see you all next time. Peace out, everybody.